everybody, for coming to Margaree Environmental Association's press conference in advance of our judicial appeal before the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia on the Minister's decision to grant a drilling permit adjacent to Lake Ainslie. My name is Brian Peters, and I'm co-chair of the Margaree Environmental Association, as is Neal Livingston, who's also co-chair of the Margaree Environmental Association. Marilyn McDonald is a resident of the Lake Ainslie area and business owner. And Robert Parkins is a resident adjacent to the drill site and a member of the Lake Ainslie Development Association. The Margaree Environmental Association has been involved with environmental issues for the past 25 years. We've been interested and very active in protecting the environment in various ways. The Margaree area and the Margaree Lake Ainslie watershed has been inhabited for 250 years. And the people along that watershed have involved themselves and developed social and economic structures that have been appropriate and been sustainable. Our concern is that the current proposal to drill an exploratory well adjacent to Lake Ainslie will significantly disrupt that balance, that social economic balance that has been established in the watershed. It's a sensitive ecosystem. It has been designated a heritage river because of its pristine environment, because of the fact that civilization has been able to live hand in hand with that pristine environment. And we don't want that to be disrupted. We don't want that to be affected. And that's the reason that we've launched this judicial appeal, why we feel that the minister erred in granting it. There are some details as far as the permit and the decision to grant the permit, and those are the basis of our appeal. We can't talk about the big picture issues. We can't talk about the fact that the world doesn't need to identify any more oil and gas reserves because we threaten to raise the global temperature in excess of 2 degrees Celsius. The existing known and accessible reserves can raise that temperature, it's estimated, about 6 degrees Celsius. But those issues are not a matter of the court. The matter of the court are the proximity of homes, water supplies, and water courses. And that's what our appeal focuses on. So first I'd like to introduce Neal Livingston, who will take us through an overview of the site and of the case.
Great, thanks very much. I was just going to run through some basic mapping and a couple of different issues that are involved in the case. The drill site itself is very close to Lake Ainslie. It's within 600 meters of Lake Ainslie, which is, as Brian was saying, part of the Margaree watershed. The Margaree River, one of the branches of the Margaree, starts here. You want to switch that? The drill site itself, this is the West Lake Ainslie Road, which runs along the west side of Lake Ainslie. And the drill site is here. I'll stand on this side. There is a home right here, which is less than 100 meters from the drill site. A well for that home is here. There is a brook here. In the submission, in the analysis by the government, the brook that's here they say is not a water course. In Nova Scotia, we say it is a water course. And Robert Parkins, who is here, his house is the next closest house and their well to the drill site. What there is in Nova Scotia is there's no regulations in Nova Scotia to control how close oil and gas drill rig can come to a home or a drinking water well. That might surprise you, but that's the status, and therefore the government, by virtue of issuing this permit, does consider anywhere to be okay in respect to a home. And these, if you look at the actual permit the minister gave out, it includes the potential for release of toxic gases. If you go to the next slide, that'd be great. So this is the closest home. The actual stake, one of the perimeter stakes for the drill rig site, in terms of scale, I guess would be standing in the middle of that staked area where the drill rig will be. So this is less than 100 meters from the home, and that's the well there. Okay. And again, one of the other major points, the is the contentious aspect specifically in terms of the legality of this case is that there are restrictions that these activities can't go on within 100 meters of a water course, and the government has defined a water course here, which is 46 meters from the drill site, as not being a water course, and anybody we know who's ever been there, and anybody you would know came and looked at that and say that that's a water course. Next picture, please. So this is a picture of that water course last, I think November 4th I took that picture, and it looks very similar to one of the brooks on my property, which is a brook. And next picture, please. And this is just out of interest here in October 29, 2010. You've got a government official, next slide, writing a report. Oh, go back one. Yeah, and it's interesting to see that in the government report they're saying that they met with the consultant for the Petroworth, which is the company that has the permit, and here we see that the government official is saying, he says,
property line to the water course.
Yeah, here he's also determined this between proposed site and water course using handheld GPS. That's not the water course we're talking about, and from the drill site to the adjacent drainage conveyance. So there is, in the case, there is a ditch across that field to the house, but effectively the government is completely ignoring this other water course. So it's just interesting to see that it's not mentioned. And if you go to the next one, and the 46-meter one is the one we're talking about. So they were calling this a drainage conveyance, and there's also another ditch that runs across the field in this area that really is what you call a human-built ditch. And can you go to the next picture? So this, one of the interesting things that we found was when we looked at the government files, we found they had taken photographs of the area, and the photographs didn't show this brook. So this is standing effectively at the brook, and the government photographer is taking a picture this way, and this is the West Lake Ainslie Road up here, and you can't see it in this photograph. Their quality wasn't very good that we got, but the drill site is in here. And if you go to the next picture, please. I guess the next one. Oh, so that picture was taken from down around here, looking this way, instead of looking, taking a photograph of that actual creek that's there. And this picture is standing, I would say, in the drill site area, looking again at that brook, but again, not showing the brook. So the government seemed to be able to come on site and take pictures of lots of stuff, but not take pictures of the brook. So and we're not allowed to introduce evidence under an appeal, so we can't introduce either evidence or photographs that show that it is a brook, so we can only really address the fact that their photographs don't show something that is really there. And these are, this is a picture that was just taken yesterday by Robert Parkin's wife, Rebecca. Again, showing, even though it's been extremely dry this spring, that the brook does have water in it. And the next photograph, please. Same thing, just another picture showing the water, and I think there's one more picture, which again is the one I took last November. I think there's one more, and that's it. So I just wanted to run through the physical aspects of really what the physical territory that the case is based around. Thanks.
Thanks, Neal. Next, Marilyn McDonald is going to talk about the impact on the community.
So I come here today to represent myself and my family and my community. I'm a long-term resident, a lifelong resident. It was where I was born and brought up. My family has been there for working on 8 generations, so it is where we live. I'm also a business owner. I know very well the value of economic development within our community. It's necessary. This kind of development, resource extractive development, has been shown through studies that it generally leaves communities worse off when they leave than when they came. We don't want to be that community. We have our own vision of our community. It's around the value of the land and the water. It has an agrarian history, and it has a very strong agrarian future. That water is extremely clean. You can dip your cup and drink that water anywhere. That was shown by studies that we had from a test project that was done by St. Francis Xavier University students last fall. Showed that purity. that's worth something in these days, worth way more than oil. And I have to say, our quality of life at Lake Ainslie is pretty good. As I've said before, it's about as good as it gets, from our point of view, anyway. And what would that quality of life look like should we have this sort of industrial development happen on the side of our lake? I'm not very excited about the thought of huge trucks rambling down our road endlessly carrying chemicals to and from this site. Not very excited about the thought of having a flaring stack from an oil rig. Not very excited about the idea of having leakage and dirty stuff just coming off that oil well. Because no matter how you cut the cake, no matter how clean and how much assurances they give us that it'll be a safe project, it's a dirty business. It does not belong in our community. It's sheer madness to think about putting this sort of thing in an area that is like Ainslie. This is our community. We need to have community self-determination where we live. All of us deserve that. I was thinking about, what's going on there, and I thought, and I was saying to Brian on the way up, it's sort of like bullying, It's they're coming in, pushing us around, and trying to get their way and leave us weaker. And this is the sort of thing we try to teach our children. That's not right. But yet, our government and this industry is trying to do that very thing to us who live there. It's not right. It's certainly, I have some trepidation about the outcome of tomorrow, what will happen, and I surely hope that wisdom, courage, and vision will prevail. I hope that those who make this decision have the wisdom to see that this is not wise use of the resource that we have in that area. That they have the wisdom to look at what's going on in other jurisdictions and see that people are realizing that the pursuit of this kind of fossil fuel is killing us in our world. I hope that they have the courage to perhaps go against the grain a little bit. There's a lot of pressure from business on government officials. They pay a lot of bills. A lot of money comes in through the oil cartel, that's how I call it. They have tremendous pressure in the world. So it takes some courage to go against that. I also hope they have the vision to see that there can be a different kind of world ahead of us. It took us a long time, well over 100 years, to get into this mess, which the pursuit of fossil fuels has brought us to. And we have to have vision to see our way out of it, but I believe that we can. And we need to start evaluating projects that come into communities and into our economy through different filters than only the bottom line, only the money that it makes. We have to think about it in terms of what it means to the people and to the quality of life, and start measuring the value of those industries in those terms. That's about all I have to say. I just hope sanity rules.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now Robert will explain the realities of living adjacent to a potential drill site.
I don't know if I've got realities. Can we go back to that very first?
Sure.
Where it shows the site? The government, keep going back. This one here, no, this one here. This is an official document. This was submitted. This is an official document. This was researched by the Department of Environment. There is a well missing here, a water well, which the owner doesn't use anymore, but it's still open. It's not closed. My original well is up here, not here. When this document was produced, I had no well on my property. This is what the government has been doing. They cobbled together a bunch of information, Where? I don't know. Nobody talked to me. I put this document together. Two contentions that I've always had. First one, this is a stream. There is a stream. Back when Lake Ainslie was created, a spring-fed stream created itself, came down here, ended up in this wetland, and flowed itself into the lake. Settlers come through, they put a road through, a culvert goes put in for easy access. Now we have a culvert and a drain to keep the roads alive. Enterprising farmer doesn't like a stream across his field, doesn't make for easy plowing, so we shift it off to the side. So I don't care what you call it. You can call it a drain, you can call it a stream, you can call it a brook. It is a water body that is flowing into a wetland, which is flowing into a lake. And even if it was a drain, what are drains for? To take things away. So if anything happens here, it lands in this drain. What it's going to do? It's going to take it away. So whether there's water in there or not, the drain will be doing its business. And I just can't seem to get it through to them. And the reason for that is a little saying I got. Truth is a painting drawn from our perspectives and colored by our biases. My bias is to protect this, protect these people, and protect the future. Provincial government's bias, oil and gas. Myopic, despot bureaucrats making decisions that are wrong. Anybody that knows me knows I go on a rant, so here we go, folks. Drill site. Anybody wonder what these are? Any idea?
I know.
Historic wells. We've had oil and gas industry in Lake Ainslie since the 1850s. Some of it was dodgy, like most of it. Other of it, they tried, they got nothing. Empirical data says this one's still gassing off. Look in the document from the KMK, available online. They say that they should take some care and try to find these wells because of well communication. You know what well communication is? That's when they drill here under pressure, and all that pressure comes out spewing miles in the air from these. So let me ask you, how are they going to contain that? Where's the nearest hazmat people? Port Hawkesbury? How long to get there? How long to collect the stuff and get up there? What are they going to do with it? Worst case scenarios. We drill, no well communication. Oil and gas, hand in hand. You can't have one, you can't have the other. Just the way it is. Do you know what a flare sounds like going off? Anybody seen those weed killer things where you put it on a small propane tank and you light it and you kill your weeds? Ever heard one of those? Sounds like a lawnmower. Times that by about 100 and then think again. 3,000 degrees going off at all times of the day, all times of the night, sometimes 24/7. 98% of the stuff that comes out of that is toxic, neurotoxins. I don't even want to get into what it is, but what they don't tell you is that, okay, 98% of the stuff is destroyed. The other 2%, well, we're not sure. And what happens to the stuff that's burnt off? Because we know when we burn things, we have residues. And is that residue the same? No, nobody tells you what those residues are. Guess what happens to this when it's shooting up in the air? You have a fire, it shoots up in the air, it floats. So it could float here, it could float here, it could float over to Sydney, depending on the winds. And we know what the winds are like in Cape Breton, don't we? They're worse than hurricanes at times. And noise. I'm not the only one who's going to be affected by noise. Who's ever been on an edge of a lake and heard a party across the road? Whoever's heard a mile away on a lake, somebody having a whispered conversation, sweet nothings in somebody's ears. It's good. The whole thing is just ludicrous. But like Marilyn says, this thing tomorrow, good or bad, makes no difference. Because if we lose, it doesn't end here. If we win, it still doesn't end, because all the government's going to do is take all the little paperwork, go back, rewrite it, and try again. Because that's what they want to do. They want to get this industry. That's all they want to do. If they'll talk to you, Scott Welton from the Energy Department wrote me a beautiful letter on how he foresees Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. He sees us as little Alberta. He thinks that's going to be the greatest thing. Nobody has to go away for work. Everybody can stay here and everybody can come back. But the one thing he doesn't say is, these are drills. We've got less than 4 hectares of area. And if they go over 4 hectares, they have to get an environmental impact study. So we stay under 4 hectares. 10, 12 people come in, maybe 20, drill, put a wellhead, then they go off. So where's the jobs? This is done, so we go drill another one. So unless you're going to be drilling 100 at a time, or 200 at a time, where's the jobs? How many people do you think needs to service it? These are the carrots that they keep putting out to us. I'm getting my 1 minute warning here. Okay, so like I said, this doesn't end here. It doesn't end tomorrow. It doesn't end ever. As far as I'm concerned, the oil and gas industry is never coming into Lake Ainslie watershed. I will do absolutely anything to stop it. Today, I am no longer looking for meaningful consultation from the government. I'm no longer, no letters, no phone calls. So, Daryl, no more phone calls. I'd like you to answer the ones I got, gave to you, but no more phone calls. So it doesn't end here. Oh, and there's one thing. I just picked this up together just as I was coming here. I got here, the Energy Department is going to be calling for applications for seismic testing in the HRM. And of particular interest is the Lake William area, which I believe is north of Dartmouth. Empirical data and historical shows have already caused some interest in the area by junior exploratory companies. The area's location near major thoroughfare and the Halifax Harbor makes shipping of recovered crude economical, and then in event of any major gas finds, the proximity of the Halifax Harbor and Halifax provides for a good market. How does that feel? Now you know what I felt like when I heard that they're going to drill beside Lake Ainslie. Puts a different spin on it, doesn't it? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We'd be happy to entertain questions.
Well, I wonder if you just maybe summarize the crux of the argument tomorrow. What is it you need to push home in this particular hearing?
Well, the hearing itself is an appeal under the Environment Act, so what it is we're appealing the minister's decision to a judge. The first step as you go back is the minister's staff issue the authority to drill, and then in the appeal process, first you go legally to the minister. We've done that through law firm Burchell's, Derek Simon's the lawyer, and so he writes to the minister and he says, this isn't proper what you've done here, we want you to quash the permit. The minister writes back and says, it's fine with me, I'm completely in support of my staff, and I'm not quashing the permit. So then the next step is we go to court, and there's been a number of preliminary hearings earlier this year, and we have a full day in court tomorrow. So effectively we're trying to convince a judge that on a number of issues that I think we've all touched on, that from being too close to homes, ignoring water course, and not having regulations regarding how close to homes it is, that those are the major issues. And I guess in an overall sense, the minister's authority is to protect human health and the environment, so that the issuing of the permit has ignored that duty of the minister.
Some of your members have expressed their doubts that this is going to end in a favorable result, even if it doesn't matter. So what's the point?
Oh, well, there's no doubt that if we get the permit quashed by the minister, by the court, that the government would have to develop a set of regulations which are different from having an absence of regulations in respect to homes and drinking the water wells. And it's a very significant matter, I think, if the judge was also to rule that they have to go and see that there's a water course where they're saying there isn't a water course. So it's I don't disagree with Robert in the sense that he's talking about some very big picture stuff about an industry that the government is heavily promoting in Nova Scotia, but in the very specifics of our region, there's no doubt that it's very inappropriate to be giving out permits that are close to homes, close to water courses, and close to lakes. And if you look at the aquatic or physical geography of western, of most of Cape Breton and most of eastern Nova Scotia, there's water everywhere. And one of the things that natives have clearly said, and I think all of us have attended the consultations with the Aboriginal people that the company did in Waikato, the native people are quite clear on this. They say there's water everywhere, it's inappropriate, and I think that comment is exactly correct. I mean, if this permit had been given out 2 kilometers away from where anybody lives or any water or any water course, you might not find us sitting here today because we may have not had the legal grounds to challenge it in the same way we are. But effectively, this kind of permit that the government has given out is a tremendous precedent that we think needs to be stopped because it's effectively saying that anywhere is okay. Almost like saying, in your neighbor's back, if you're living in the city, in your neighbor's backyard across the street from your house. Is the equivalent of what we're finding this permit is relative to homes.
So you know, further to that, we are also hopeful that the minister will quash the permit. It's true, it's an uphill battle for a judicial review, but we are hopeful. Secondly, we are using this whole process to bring public attention to the issue, and thirdly, we're hoping that this action will be a prod to encourage the development of proper laws and regulations controlling such development. It may not happen tomorrow, but it will contribute to that problem.
What's your message to the public in general about what people should be concerned about?
Well, people should be concerned about inappropriate development in sensitive ecosystems, and sensitive ecosystems can be defined very broadly. We have to be very careful about how we do this kind of stuff. That we have an ultimate responsibility to manage human activity, and that is our primary message. That we have to be very careful and we have to be very considerate of the natural environment.
You will see appeals tomorrow. What will the committee association do?
Well, we'll continue our campaigns. You know, we're just one very small part of this. There is the Council of Canadians that has quite an active campaign opposed to fracking and oil and gas development in sensitive ecosystems. There are wildlife organizations that we've been networking with. There are many environmental organizations across the Maritimes that we're working together with the Ecology Action Centre and others. That it's a multi-pronged campaign towards environmental sense.
Where our group very much decided from some historical experience, and skill sets that we have to do the piece of the opposition that has to do with legal opposition. I mean, there's tremendous uproar in the community about this, and I think you could tell that. I think we all live in the area. We're trying to address this from different points of view. Do you have a question?
I do, yeah. Your lawyer is not here today, is he?
No.
Has your lawyer given you any sense of whether or not there's precedent for this or any sort of jurisprudence out there? Like, they're new ground?
No, it's not new ground at all. I mean, there have been a number of appeals under the Environment Act which have been successful where judges have quashed permits, and that has, not meant that the minister just goes and rubber stamps a permit the next day. It has caused, significant difference when this happens, and there is quite a bit of legal jurisprudence in Nova Scotia under Environmental Act appeals.
So there is some reason for optimism here on your part. That you're,
Sure, we did.
Cautious optimism.
Yeah, initially, the government's position in this, if you read their brief, is that we're the government, we can never do wrong. We always win. But I was kind of joking with the lawyer the other day, and I said, well, if you read part of their brief, it appears that it's saying sometimes we lose, but their overall message is we never lose. So it's really, everybody was completely shocked to see where this was given out. I mean, how could you possibly be, the staff of the Department of Environment coming and measuring this drill site and have it being right next to a house, right next to the water course, and you can see Lake Ainslie in the background, and not have raised any issues about location at all in the files, none, as if this is completely normal. So that's really the impetus for us when we looked at the files to say, you know, we really have to do something here. I mean, our group, in a bigger picture kind of way, I mean, our group hasn't taken legal action against the provincial government since John Buchanan was premier, and it's a little bit indicative of what's going on in Nova Scotia now to see that we're going to court again in terms of the position the government's, and importance to concentrating on environmental matters. It's it's a real tragedy that this is going on.
And that picture showed there was a home within 100 meters of the well. That's not Robert's home, is it?
No, that's the landowners.
Oh, okay. And how close is your home to the well?
250 meters.
250 meters. Okay, thank you.
There's 8 homes within 1 kilometer of the drill site.
Mr. Livingston, previously at the beginning of your presentation, you said that you cannot put forth any new evidence because with the appeal. How are you going to prove the water body was overlooked if you can't put forth new evidence?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and that is an essential component of the case. I think that the argument will probably depend on definition and the ambiguity of case law, as it stands. But I don't know enough about it to be able to comment on it.
I mean, we certainly said in our submissions there's a water course there and the government's ignoring it. What we can do is have an affidavit from any of us or an expert to say there's a water course there. What the government didn't do in its, if you look at their documents, is there's no record, and they've had to submit their records on this matter. There's no record that they researched to see if it was a water course. So the absence of the document that shows that they researched if it's a water course, we're hoping will convince a judge that they didn't do their job properly, which hopefully would result in it being quashed. Or one of the reasons for it being quashed. So the absence of that we think is significant, but we can't come forward with a photograph or a piece of new evidence. It's like any other appeal.
What will the residents do if the appeals don't work?
We'll have a meeting, and we'll see what the residents want to do.
Can you speak at all about the legal implications of the consultations with the people of Wakaba, the Indigenous nation? Petroworth had some consultations with them.
Yes, they did. I mean, we all attended quite a volatile meeting, which was probably one of the most extreme opposition expressions of opposition that I've ever attended.
Me too.
Certainly the developer, I don't think any government representatives were in the room, and certainly Petroworth, the developer, should have got the message loud and clear. It's very difficult for us to comment on what the First Nations intentions are. However, there's no doubt about it that they have an interest, a strong interest, and they're a component of the opposition to the development of this well.
I guess I'm just thinking about fiduciary duty and that kind of thing in terms of the minister's legal ability to.
Well, what's interesting about it is the government doesn't do the consultation with the community. They consider that the oil and gas company should come to the community and promote their development and hear from the community. I think both the formats that I attended, one on West Lake Ainslie and one at Wakaba, are ones in which normally these companies these days don't have a formal audience and a Q&A, but there was so much community intention that that's the way they wanted it, that in both those settings that I attended, I mean, I've been in a lot of meetings, and the opposition is very clear in the community, the Native community. I was never in a meeting like that in my life. I mean, I'm somebody who carries around a video camera to film things, and I was so shocked by the level of opposition at the community meeting in Wakaba that I actually turned the camera off. And that's not. I mean, if the government doesn't want to hear from the community, I mean, what's the whole process about?
One of the selling points of their business that they brought to Lake Ainslie was an ongoing clip of Jed Clampett. They had it running on their video screen, little video screen for the community to see. So that,
Are running flip of what?
Jen
The
Clement, you
the
know,
Beverly Hillbillies?
Beverly Hillbillies, when
Sort
they
of.
oil, they would found oil in the Black Hills, you know?
The company was planning this at the.
Yeah, that was the level of what they thought. It looped right over and over again. That's what that's the respect they give to the people. Imagine, eh? Insult to injury or what?
The Lake Ainslie Hillbillies.
Like Ainslie Hillbillies.
Could somebody explain the legalities of who owns the land where the proposed drill site is, and by what right can Petroworth drill there with government blessing?
I mean, obviously, any company can show up on anybody's, knock on your door and say, hey, we'll pay you, you know, X amount of dollars if we can drill on your property. And one of the contentions we make in the case is, it doesn't matter if you're being paid and you live next door and it's on your property, right? That doesn't change the regulatory environment that should exist to say that it's not okay to drill by your house. Because if you're in there and there's an escape of gas and you get killed, or it wrecks your water supply, the fact that you've been paid some money doesn't matter.
I
It's
understand that, but
yeah.
who actually owns the land?
Oh, the land is owned by.
Kenneth McDonald, and they made a deal. Some amount of money would have changed hands, and
So he's being paid for giving them the right to
at least to make
do
it easy for
exploratory
them,
drilling
exactly.
on his land.
Yep. Yep.
But technically, what's the law in Nova Scotia in terms of mineral
We don't know.
extraction? You have
Six
to-
inches.
If you want mineral rights for your own land, you have to go to government, and how is that done?
Well, you'd have to get a lease on it or stake a claim, but chances are, if there's anything there, someone else already has the claim staked. And if not, you pay a certain amount to have that control over that, but then you also have to do a certain amount of development per year on that. It makes
So
everything
you
is
can't
weighted very
just
heavily.
tie it up.
No.
And the specifications are pretty onerous, so really it's restricted to mining companies that have deep enough pockets to be able to maintain the claims.
But what you're describing actually speaks to what Robert mentioned, which is everybody is in the same situation. If you think that your neighbor across the
Absolutely.
street is willing for some amount of money to give out a permit for oil and gas exploration.
Yes.
I mean, the most shocking thing is you really would find it hard to believe that the government could come on site and say this is an appropriate place. It really speaks to the lack of concern about human health and the environment, and also speaks about how much the government is interested in encouraging development at any cost.
I think the Premier has spoke quite clearly that any problems that might occur are far outweighed by the potential benefits.
And everybody in the community would disagree very heavily.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, there is one thing too, that the provincial government regulates the industry. The provincial government collects the royalties. If there is a problem, I have a problem with my water well or my basement sinks from underneath my house, the provincial government washes their hands. I have to go after the company myself. There is no support from the provincial government.
They only have a year insurance policy on that area once they leave, right? And then anything that might occur after that, they are saying they don't have any liability for it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming, and I'm sure that you'll hear the results of the judge's decision.
Will the decision be rendered tomorrow?
Probably not, but we don't know.
Do what you can to spread the good word. It could be in your community next.
Thank you.
Thank you.